Okay, I have to do this video. I um I didn't want to really make any kind of video just because I believe that whatever is gonna happen is gonna happen. But I guess if I didn't put my 2 cents in, I would feel at least someone culpable in what's happening in this world. So I'm on Twitter and on my Instagram and just everything in general. I've been seeing this huge push, like this huge anti-capitalism sentiment. Like everybody is talking about how we need to get 15 minimum wage, all these different services, how the government needs to step in and solve all of these different problems. And it's just been getting a lot of retweets, a lot of likes. I've been talking to a lot of my friends, and everybody just feels like America needs to make this huge push towards socialism. There's just a lot of data and information going on, and 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 I'm just taken aback. Now, I'm doing this video because right now I will tell you I believe that is the wrong road. I mean, that's just my personal belief system. I've been, I've been kind of on a path of rediscovering myself, kind of figuring out the world and making sense of it. And by doing that, I came across Thomas Sowell at one point and then Milton Friedman, two flawed men with flawed ideas, but they helped me kind of see the world from a different perspective. Growing up throughout most of my life, I used to believe in what's called the Venus Project. It was by Jacques Fresco. One of my mentors slash hero is Noam Chomsky, no capitalist. But I believe that one of the things that we take whenever we start to think about like socialism and how good and all this other thing is that we take out the human element. We tend to think of only the best. We always tend to think that, what I think is good and what the other person think is good is across the board, right? And so because of that, people tend to think, okay, if some politician tweets, once I'm president, we're going to have free, great, wonderful, perfect healthcare for all, and people can get behind that. That's an easy idea to get behind, right? Because one is, how do you measure that, right? The free part doesn't exist because there's going to be doctors and nurses and people that need to work, right? Wonderful. How do you quantify that, right? Does that mean that if I break my leg, I get some top of the line surgery, for my knee? I could go play basketball and I tear my ACL and I get the same level of treatment and surgery that LeBron James does, right? That's what. So there's this idea that we can just achieve these incredible means through the pen, through government. And at first I didn't really care, because I believe that, I've watched videos and I've read, some of Das Kapital. That's a huge book. And so I realized that the natural trend is that as a society, I looked at what's going on in Chile and here what's going on in the United States. As a society starts to become wealthy and powerful, and as capital markets start to reach a certain level of maturity, people, because of how capital and capital accumulation work, people naturally going to become anti-capitalist, because you're going to have the Bill Gates, the Elon Musk, and the super wealthy having so much, while the average American who have houses, cars, drive nice vehicles, driving around in a big Forerunner, burning all the gas in the world, throwing away food, they eat half their plate, they're full, they're thrown away. But man, their lives are horrible. I mean, they woo, just terrible existence. And it's because they need the government to make sure that there's more food to throw away, and you could drive bigger trucks and waste more gas. So I'm doing this video because we're going down. I believe that naturally we're going to go down a terrible road, right? And I don't know if people are going to like or share. It doesn't matter to me, but I have to speak a little bit about why I believe. Again, I'm sure there's socialists, there's people that study in economics that's gonna believe that no, the government can step in and do all these great things, and that we can achieve these great ends by using socialist means to achieve it. I tend to disagree, and here's why. Okay, the problem comes down to, when I first came across Milton Friedman and his theory on markets. was that capitalism is our markets, our economics is really the study of value. And if you look at economics, if you look at physics and some of the mathematics, you're really studying these ideas more or less in a vacuum, right? So you look at gravity, you can measure all these things. But when you're dealing with economics, you're dealing with people. And people aren't always so predictable, right? But what Milton Friedman realized, and not just him, but the father of capitalism, who wrote The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith, is that when you look at people, people usually react the same when it comes to particular incentives. Not everybody, though, right? Take, for example, if you give the average woman, if you go to the average woman, right? Maybe you get 100 women, random women, and you say, hey, I'll give you $10 million, right? To do a porno, right? There's gonna be maybe 60 or 70 of them that says that's a lot of money that could change my life, and they would do it, right? They may choose to do that. But there may be, 20 or 30 of them that says I'm a Christian. I believe in these Christian values, my family, and everything else, and they may not do it. So, you know what I mean? So that's what I mean is that when you look at economics, it's, what I mean? The idea is that you're offered all this money that people should, in one way or another, just take the money. So everybody should take the money, right? That's why there's this word called cerebus paribus, mean all things being equal. But obviously in the real world, aren't all things aren't equal, right? So not everybody would take that money. Well, what's the point I'm trying to make? The point I'm trying to make is this: Milton Friedman, as well as Adam Smith and the guy, the author of The Road to Serfdom, kind of realized this, and I have come to realize this real thing. Each person, no matter how good, how bad, how horrible, how terrible, is usually pursuing their own self-interest. Everybody is looking out for themselves. I remember at one point I had this really bad stomach ache, right? And I thought that it was gonna be the end of me. And I remember talking to a good friend of mine, and I was telling them about how bad it was hurting and everything. And they were listening, and they were saying, "Wow, that sounds terrible," and whatever. And after I got off the phone, there was, what I mean? I imagined that they went on to call their sister, call their brother, talk about other things. They couldn't be worried about my belly because it wasn't their belly that was hurting, right? I've known people that have lost family members, right? Due to like the coronavirus and stuff like that. And I've talked to them, and I've pleaded, and I've sympathized for them. But at the same time, when I got off the phone, I started watching my movie, I was back to laughing. Because again, it's not mean. Now, that's not being mean, and people will say, well, you're cruel. But we know that's just the truth. People usually can only focus on themselves, right? I'm not saying that, you see, at the end of the day, I love children, right? And so for me, I always, if I remember when I was just in Colombia, and I just got back, right? And when I would see the poor children, they'd be young. In Colombia, there's a lot of kids that's out there trying to sell candy, trying to do whatever because they need money to eat and live, right? And so I would see these young kids, sometimes little young girls that come up and they say, "Please, sir, can you give me some money? I'm hungry," or whatever. And I would give them some money, right? And then I remember, um, I was with some friends, and they told me, "Hey, you can't give the young children money because what happens is that they get like there's perverts that go and they bait them with the money, right?" So my intention was good, right? From my mindset, my intent, my goal was good, but the result was gonna still could still lead to be wrong. You know what I mean? So why is that important? It means that we can have good intentions. We could set out to do the right thing, but a lot of the times, without any real ways to quantify or measure that, we could end up having horrific and bad results, right? You see, so even though my intentions are good, right? It could still end up being for bad. That's the reason why I believe that you need a market system, right? A thriving market system. You know, I see that the government, a lot of people are saying the government needs to raise the minimum wage. The government needs to provide more incentives. I mean, more support systems. And again, I believe that there's a role for that, right? But the thing is that as the government tend to roll out these programs, just like even with, I thought that Obama's health insurance plan was a step, was a better than what's available. But at the same time, you saw that he had to use force. He had to say you had to get health insurance or else. You see, force became the only way that he could achieve, really good aims. But that's the problem with government. That's the problem with trusting government to do thing to achieve these aims, right? And then the thing is once force is initiated, it only expands, you know. And then at that point, once you know what I mean, once the governments get big enough, gets powerful enough, people, you just get bottlenecked. You can't do anything about it. You see, in a free market system, there's always options. That's the reason why we have the Sherman antitrust laws. Is that you're trying to create ways in which there's always new ideas, new incentives. I was on my way back from Colombia, and on the way back, I missed my the flight to come home because immigration was taking too long. Right, I get to immigration line. It was, I mean, the guy, and you could just tell on the people's face, like the spirit. That's why I flew. They were freaking out. They were like, okay, we need to try to get these people because they're gonna miss the next flight, and there's gonna be a lot of angry people, right? But the person that was at immigration, he didn't give a damn because what incentives did he have? What I mean. If I'm angry, I could choose never to fly Spirit again, right? I could say this is a crappy airline. It was them because I was late, but you have to go through immigration. There is no, so they have every incentive in the world to be slow and bad. What incentive do they have to be better? Right? And that's what's going to happen as governments get bigger and more powerful. Is that you stand not to have a checks. Like I saw this person was saying that was very anti markets, talking about all these billionaires and all these millionaires. What incentive, Milton Friedman once said that in a free market system, if you have a strong and robust and powerful free market system, that they will keep a check on political power. And I've never seen that come to fruition in such a beautiful way than what happened with Donald Trump. Right now, I don't agree with what happened because I believe in free speech, but that's another conversation for another time. But one of the things what I am saying is that at the end of the day, you had a situation in which really it seems as if Trump was trying to more or less say the election was won by him. You know what I mean? And according to the court system, that wasn't so. But then you had a lot of powerful organizations, a lot of powerful businessmen, powerful people that said, "Hey, that's not how it's gonna go," and it was a check against, it was a check really against him being able to keep power with Twitter, Facebook, and everybody taking him off. It was a check against political power. Well, what happens when you start to give the government too much power? You don't have that check anymore. You can't take him off. He controls the radio stream. I mean, he controls the radio stations and so forth. So, I see that they're saying they're going to raise the minimum wage. I mean, again, I understand. Like I told you with that kid example, the motive and the reason is justified and good. But ultimately, just like that situation where I give that young lady that money, and now she's comfortable taking money from grown men, right? That 11-year-old, and then the pervert comes along and offers her money and then steals her and does whatever. It's the same thing I believe with this minimum wage situation. Again, I agree that people should be paid more and should be able to get more time off work, right? And should be able to achieve these, a high quality of life. But at the same time, it's not the government's job to come in and say this is how industry should arrive. I believe we were going that way anyways. Companies were going to get that way anyways, but because all the studies and research is showing that having people that are less tired and more focused is more productive. In the video game industry, I'm a gamer, And you're seeing all these video games that come out and they're just not up to par because there's this rush to finish everything. And then there's the companies like Rockstar that takes 6, 7, 8 years on their developmental cycles. And then whenever they release a game, it's top of the line right from the bottom line, but they don't crunch their people. And then they go on to sell billions. They make all this money. So if you're another company, if you're EA or whatever, you say, well, Rockstar is doing this. They're making more money. They're a better publisher. The people are happy. Our people are going there. We need to find a way to be better. We've got to give more people off time. We've got to stop doing the crunch thing because in the long run, it costs us money. So the markets were going that way anyways. Now a lot of people are talking about the wealth inequality, and a lot of people think it's the corporation's fault why that is. But the real problem is that our educational system has failed most American, and most people go to public schools here. It's the government. It usually comes back to that. People talk about the wealth discrepancy in the United States, and they say it's the millionaires' fault. No, it's the government. Look at the federal government. They've been printing money. And who has that money been going to? It hasn't been going to me. It hasn't been going to my mom. It hasn't been going to the average American. It's been going to million and billionaires because guess what happens, right? If you're a multi-millionaire or billionaire, you have access to cheap capital. You could take that $1 million, right? Like I bought Bitcoin at 15,000, right? It got up to 40,000. Now imagine if I was able to borrow from the federal government $1 million, right? Bet that money, double it, and if I lose, then I ask for a bailout. So what we've really created in this country is you have a situation in which you have socialism for the rich and capitalism for the poor. That's the real argument. That's the real conversation. It's not about how to make socialism more accessible to everybody. You know what I mean? And because again, once you start to do that, then it's kind of like Ford and all these other companies learn. The government, once they get in your business, they don't try to get out. You know, once some organization comes up, once some government law becomes law, it doesn't matter how bad it is. Look at like the drug laws that they have on the books. They're horrible. They're terrible. But look how long look how long it takes to reverse something like that. 55 years. So I'm always looking for a smaller government. Now, is there a role for government? Of course. There is a role. But it's not this big role that where they come in and they solve your problems. You know what I mean? A lot of people that are complaining about how hard their lives are buying houses in a market in which houses are off the roof. People don't want to sacrifice. America was made wealthy and great because it was a country built on sacrifice. People came here, they lived sometimes three or four people to a room. They saved their money, they invested, they started businesses, and they grew and they thrived. And they did well. And in generations, 2-3 generations, they were able to go to quality colleges and universities. A lot of people, like I said, even going back to the housing boom. Again, that was a government spending program. No sensible company would have actually gave out ninja loans. No income, no job. But again, if you create the perverse incentive where the government is going to back these loans, well, I'm not going to take the loss. So I see this as a step in the wrong direction. It scares me. Like I said, I'll stay on this, the minimum wage thing. Who is that gonna hurt? Black folks. The people that think they will benefit from it the most, and Hispanics. Why? Because if I'm McDonald's, right, and I'm the manager and I'm white, and at the end of the day, I want to hire somebody I know for $15 an hour. Where you have a free market system, you're just gonna go with whoever will do the work for the cheapest amount of money. But when you take that away, guess what? You're gonna start being a lot more selective. Not only that, now you're gonna incentivize a lot more business. $32,000 a year. The next time you find a machine that could flip burgers for less, right? Then you put that in. Then the government is gonna have to come in and create some new law that says you can't use a machine to flip burgers and sell and automate the system. That's just not we. I have a little cousin right now in high school. He doesn't know how to program or code. One these are the skills he does. They're not teaching him. Like our school system is failing our kids. That's really what it comes down to. If we're gonna ask for, like I said, if you want health, quality health insurance, I believe that what you should do is do community. You know what I mean? It should be voluntary community programs, meaning that you should have a situation where like let's say I live in Fort Worth, where a group of people in Fort Worth, they could set up their own fund where they fund their own insurance. They use local doctors. But why don't any of these organizations exist? Why don't like a community fund or a small fund? Usually because of some law that's on the books that make it illegal for people to do that. Markets haven't been thriving. I will say this to finish out my really I'll say this. There was a situation in which Amazon, right? There was someone ordered a product off Amazon, right? And they received the product. And when they received the product, it was defective. They used the product. It gave the person three third-degree burns. And afterwards, the person was so distraught and upset that he decided to sue Amazon. But Amazon says, hey, that didn't come from us. That came from one of our third-party distributor. You got to go after them. The person tried to sue him, but obviously that company probably had $100,000, worth of money. That company only probably had like the $100,000 worth of insurance, and so the person was upset. So they said, hey, there should be a law where we can sue Amazon. Now, at the time when you hear that, you would think Amazon would say, of course not. We're going to take this to court and we're going to fight for this law not to exist. Where they can't, like for a third party selling a defective product, why should they be able to sue us? That would make sense for Amazon to fight that law. But no, Amazon says you're right. If they're using us and we're the third party distributor, they should be able to sue us. You're right. And most people said, wow, look at Amazon being a generous and great company. And most people look at the situation and say, wow, this is good. We'll be able to sue Amazon if we buy defective products, which means that, if it was Amazon that got sued, that lady probably would have made millions of dollars, right? Okay. Now that to me is the fundamental problem with why markets aren't really working for most people and why most people are poor. It's because of laws like that exist. That law doesn't exist, but let's say that law does get in place, right? Why would Amazon want a law like that, and why would it be good for Amazon? Well, let's say that law goes into law, and then me and a buddy of mine have a way that we can make an Amazon system a lot more efficient, a lot more smarter, and a lot better. Okay, we set up a similar account, similar storefront towards Amazon, and we start to get a lot of sales. Right, we come off and kicking. Well, Amazon knows that we're new. We're the new kid on the block. We don't have a lot of money, maybe $1 million that we've made. So what happens is that maybe they pay someone to post an ad, which used to happen all the time when these large, going back to like in the early days of before antitrust laws existed, right? This used to happen all the time. But let's say Amazon pays someone to go put a defective product. Someone uses that product off a third party website, and now they sue us for everything we got. We're out of business. Well, there you go. So what it does is that's an anti-market situation in which that organization will now Amazon will be that they'll set up two or three corporations that they'll say they're not competing with, but it'll really just be a cabal. It's what's happening in the airline industry and so forth. You'll have this cabal of industry. The politicians will be in their pockets, making sure that they're making new and more powerful laws to keep less competition out. And so that's what tends to happen. Those are the great Milton Friedman, again Thomas Sowell, some of the greatest economic thinkers have always said that the biggest threat to capitalism, right, is not it's not the masses, it's businessmen and politicians, because socialism empowers them the most. You know, socialism empowers them because then they get to rule through force. Again, I'll probably do more videos. This was a little long winded. I know that I know which way the wave is going. So this is all for nothing. I'm really wasting my breath, but it has to be said, and it's gonna get ugly. It's gonna get ugly because England, as well as the U.S., where you've had markets, it's not perfect. I'm not gonna say that, but you have what markets give you is the ability to push yourself forward. It's ability to be wealthy. It's ability to be successful. I just watched a documentary on North Korea. There is no moving up. There is no there where you are, you are. You're looking at what China is going, trying to shut down markets. There's no more moving up. There's no Jack Ma. You know what I mean? So that's gonna happen here because at the end of the day, people want a big government because they think government can step in and save the day. But you got to remember, as much as Joe Biden might love America, he loved his family and his constituents more, the people that he knows. Same thing with Kamala, same with Donald Trump, same with anybody, right? We're going to take care of home first, right? So people are always going to look out for themselves first. And because of that, you want a system where someone looking out for themselves benefits you, which is what a price system does, not hurt you, which is what a socialist system does. On that note, if anybody watches this video, good luck, and just be wary, man. Be wary. Be wary.